Okay, so I have just finished my 11th annual New Year's Eve party that I host at my house. This has been going on for, like I said, the last 11 years, pretty much since I was 15 to now. Current time is 1:58 a.m. The guests left probably around 1 o'clock. Um, I just spent the last hour cleaning. The house is all cleaned up now. I finalized messages, complete all the last minute stuff. I'm just winding down now, but it's good to film a video quickly like this in the direct aftermath. Try and get my feelings on it. We had about 17 people attend, I think, which is a decent turnout. We normally have a mix of between 10 to 22, I think. So this is a decent year. What stood out to me? Basically nothing. It was a pretty normal party compared to previous years. The guest list is like almost always the same. It's my friends from high school, and then in most recent years they've been bringing their partners. A lot more wives than husbands these days. I did notice this year that I think every single guest had a partner. If I mentally go through the list now, yeah, I would say everybody had a partner. People that I didn't know had partners showed up with partners, which is good for them. But it did put me in a strange mood. Not negative. I like when my friends are happy and in relationships. It gives me a kind of typical vicarious joy. I think that's what people call empathy or something like that. I don't really understand it, but I'm not resentful, even though I might sound that way. I'm just contemplative because it inevitably you see everybody else doing something, all your friends at the same age achieve something, and you think to yourself, am I behind? That's a normal thought for careers, romantic relationship, anything like that. So I get why I'm feeling this way, but it's not a negative feeling. It's just a brief consideration that can be easily overridden with the most basic amount of logical reflection. So the party was good. I had fun. I did some drinking, did some eating, even though I said I wasn't going to eat because I'm supposed to be losing weight, but I probably just ate an entire roll of garlic bread and a bunch of pizza and beers. Who knows how many calories? So this is a minor setback, though it's going to look significant on the scales, and I'm going to freak out. I'm going to throw a tantrum, and I'm going to probably spend all of New Year's Day starving myself just to try and compensate for that weight. But yes, I did need to get my thoughts on this immediate aftermath. So my thoughts are, this was fun. I'm going to keep doing it. These annual parties, occasionally I think that I'll stop doing them, that I'm getting too old or that they're too much trouble, but they're not. The benefits far outweigh the costs. How many people can get their friends together every single year, for like 11 years straight, and just see everybody with new partners, old partners, married, not married. It's great. I love seeing this step by step, year by year progression, and I will hold on to it. I'll cling to it for as long as I can, even if it's just me and a couple close friends that have been together for a long time. I'm going to keep doing it for as long as other people want to do it as well. And even when they don't, I'll do it alone. No, not really. Fuck. It's been a good evening. These parties are pretty much always fun, but I do always feel when the party's over and I usher everybody out and say goodbye, then I make a coffee and I sit down in the same spot every year pretty much, and then look at all the mess. And I don't really care about the mess. It's easy to clean. I've gotten really good at it and streamlined the process over the years. But you just sit there in the wreckage and I guess you reflect on being alone, and you reflect on the party that you just hosted and all the people that are gone, and you sit in the silence because the music has stopped as well. In this case, my speaker ran out of battery, which added to the dramatic effect. So you just sit there and I don't know what you think. Is it melancholy? Is it nostalgia? Is it joy at a job well done. I don't know. Do I do this out of habit? Obligation? What I do know is that I'm happy for my friends who have come and they seem to be relatively happy. Their lives seem to be going relatively well. Mine's also going relatively well. It's just a couple minor things that are not perfect. Let's pick this up tomorrow. Hopefully my voice will be a little bit recovered. My head won't hurt. I've got more things to talk about, and they do link to this topic a little bit because they have to do with the idea of like magnanimous suffering and why I put myself through these things. Because when people offer to help clean, I typically say no. That mostly has to do with this topic, this idea of the more I suffer, the more I'm worth, or that I have to be the most capable, and to accept anybody's help is to accept failure, or to accept my weakness. To accept their help is to lose some kind of invisible game that only I'm playing and I don't even know the rules of. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, and I hope I come to some kind of grand epiphany while filming that will change my thinking, and it will open me up to the idea of, hey, next time somebody offers help, why don't I just say, yeah, help me clean this house. It's 1:30 in the fucking morning. Yeah, please help me clean the house. Because every year I just drink the coffee and then just do the cleaning myself when people always offer and I always say no. Let's figure that out tomorrow.
3 days later.
Okay, so I'm back. It's the New Year's. It's currently the 3rd of January, 8:04 a.m. But I'm better now, and the year has started off on a great note. I've been doing lots of reading. I've got a new spreadsheet to track my reading as well. I actually had one in 2025, but it was pretty rudimentary, so we've upgraded that. As you can tell, I love spreadsheets. I'm a real freak in the Google Sheets, so to speak. I wish I was an Excel Olympian, but yeah, that's not going to happen. So yeah, the reading stats are looking pretty good. I've got a clear idea of how I can bump up the number. I actually checked all my old stats for the previous few years. It averages out since 2019 to about, I think, 40 books a year. You know, not bad, not great, not terrible, but I'd like to bump it up on average to maybe 50 a year. So I'll aim for 60 this year, and then that should raise the average a little bit. I've been working on an essay for my degree as well. It's pretty straightforward, just 1,500 words, really easy. I graduate in June, which is very exciting. It's only one semester left after this summer semester, so it's just 3 subjects left, I think. You know, the second worst thing about graduating is that I can no longer tell people that I study and work full-time, because that always impresses them. And if you tell people, oh yeah, I used to study and work full-time, they're gonna be like, yeah, so what? You used to. It's like a 40-year-old bragging about how much they could bench when they were 20. It's like, that's in the past. But let's get back on topic. The stuff I was discussing on New Year's Day after the party, when I was a little fatigued, and I think the topic I'd really landed on was suffering. And I'm trying to acknowledge and reconcile the fact that I experience what I call a desire to have magnanimous suffering, which is a fancy way to say that I choose to suffer for other people because I think it increases my worth. As in, when I carry something for somebody else, I'm not doing it because I'm kind or because I want to help them. I'm doing it because I will suffer more and they will be impressed, and then I will feel like my worth has increased. I've seen this manifest at work and my previous job, not so much my current job, but definitely the previous one and a couple other situations with people where I will happily take on stuff even if it pains me physically or emotionally, because that will induce a sense of gratitude in them, which will feed something incorrect in my soul. They might even experience kind of like a sense of grateful pity, like, oh, he's working so hard, poor guy, you know, he's doing extra hours when he shouldn't be. Did you just say my name? Oh, fuck. Okay, I'm gonna edit that out. Okay, like I was saying, I will take on more so that other people will experience a sense of almost pity, and then that will make me think. It's a martyr complex, I think. It's a mixture of this desire to suffer magnanimously, but also to be a martyr so that people look upon you with a sense of gratitude and pride that feeds a sense of self-worth in me, a incorrectly derived sense of worth. An incorrectly derived sense of self. I can't say this. An incorrectly derived sense of self-worth. So yeah, this is definitely going on the list of things to consider and improve upon in 2026. Just another of many of these personal attributes, but it's good to get it out in the open. That's what this whole channel is for. It ties in with my feelings. Let me check my topic list. It ties in with my sense that I am pushing myself too hard, but other times feel like I'm not pushing myself hard enough. A friend told me this as well, that I'm too hard on myself, and I think there was a comment recently on one of the videos that mentioned the same thing. And instinctively, my thought is that these people are incorrect. They don't see what I'm seeing, they don't know what I'm working with, and that I'm ultimately not pushing myself hard enough. On a cerebral, logical level, I can understand that they are correct and that I do put too much emphasis on working too hard, but on a emotional, instinctual, visceral level, I feel that I need to always do more. I mean, this ties in with my desire to suffer. Pushing yourself more induces this suffering within myself and only for myself. And one of the biggest issues is that pushing myself more to the point of feeling bad can sometimes have really good results. I'll push myself and then finish a project or have a really good training block or do something really impressive, and people will focus on the result and give the equivalent accolades for it, and then that will feed into my sense of, oh, I pushed myself hard enough to be almost damaging, but it worked out, so I just need to do that again because clearly I can survive it. But imagine pushing a car in a F1 car, and you're pushing it. This is a bad analogy, I don't know racing. Imagine pushing a horse in a race and it wins the race, so you think to yourself, well, let's just go to the next race. An hour from now, it should be fine, right? No, you've pushed yourself to a threshold that cannot be sustained, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need to think of it purely in a sense of chronology, short term, long term. I push myself too hard in the short term, but I needs to be in a sustainable, healthy way. Let's go over that again. I'm allowed to push myself hard for the sake of ambition, but I should do it for my own sake in a way that is not destructive in the short term, and I should not strive to suffer to impress others. That's good, yeah. I'm going to try and internalize that. That's a pretty good point. The other reason I think all this happens with me is because I have an instinctive, internal love, almost an obscene love for control. I don't try and control other people, I just try and control myself and my environment and things like that. And this love of control has benefited me in a lot of ways to achieve things like writing books, reading books, training, picking up hobbies, just doing well at work, doing well at study, doing well in general. And I know that I'm fortunate for having a personality that can just do that. Not everybody's gonna instinctively be able to do that, of course. So I'm lucky. I know that I'm lucky for having that, but it does have the double-sided issue of making me collapse a little bit when I can't control things. And like I said, I don't try to control people, but there's still a sense there's still a frustration when I realize that I can't control things, can't control certain situations. When I get injured or sick, I feel like this is something I should be able to control, but it's not. It's just happened and you have to live with it. Same with people. When there's certain outcomes that involve others, I just get annoyed. That's why I don't like team sports, because I'm not a team player, because you can't control other people. You have to rely on the team. I only like sports like skiing, archery, rollerblading, going to the gym, all these very singular things. I've never played a team sport. I've only ever done things alone. When I was a kid, I also refused to have group classes. I would always insist on having one-on-one private classes, which it's good and bad. It benefited because I did learn things quicker with private lessons, but it obviously lacks the social element. Anyway, so my love of control also has a factor into this desire to suffer and to push myself hard enough. Putting it together, I would say that I need to understand what can and cannot be controlled. that's a pretty easy, simple point to understand. When I try and trace these elements of my personality, I don't think they were always there. I think part of it was cultivated in recent years when I got into Japanese studies. And it always makes me laugh to think about telling people that I studied Japan, because when I think of Western guys in their early 20s who studied Japan, it just involves like watching anime, reading hentai, and playing Persona. But it wasn't just that with me. It was also I read 101 of their books. I studied their history extensively, mostly Heian period, Meiji, Taisho, that kind of thing. Edo, of course. And then I watched this review for a game called Tokimeki Memorial by this guy named Tim Rogers, and it's like this massive video, like a 5.5 hour long video, and that inspired me to, well, I wanted to play the game, but it wasn't translated back then. I think it is now. I think that's a fan translation, but I had to learn the language just so I could play this freaking game. And then after all that, I visited the country twice, spent about 7 weeks there, in the main island, Tokyo, Matsumoto, Takayama, Kanazawa, Kurashiki, Hiroshima, Osaka, and I think Kyoto at the end, or maybe it was Osaka at the end, I don't remember. And the other trip was Hokkaido, with just the basic, like Sapporo, Asahikawa, things like that. But why am I bringing up Japan? Because I think I became so immersed in some of the concepts, and some of the cultural elements, and some of the intrinsic outlooks and perspectives that they hold, that it affected me both positively and negatively. I say this especially in regard to the literature, because reading the national literature of any country is a great way to get a sense of who they are as a people. And with Japan, a lot of the early books that I read didn't make sense to me. Like, characters were doing things that I felt were so irrational and so contrived almost, that I was just thinking, why would they do that? Is this for a plot convenience? Is this just something I'm not seeing? Did I miss a page? But no, you read more and more, and eventually after dozens of books, different authors, different time periods, you start to see consistencies, and you start to feel and empathize with them to the point where you read another book and a character does something and you just think to yourself, well, of course they did that. I think the guy who wrote the introduction for Natsume Soseki's last book, Light and Dark, talks about how even though the book is unfinished, if you are familiar with Natsume Soseki, then even though it's unfinished, you can basically draw a conclusion about what would happen anyway. And they're right, you read enough of these books, and then you read this unfinished book, and you get a sense of the characters, and you kind of know what's coming. Not in a way that's like predictable, but in a way that makes sense for the culture and the characters within this time period. So as a result of unconsciously assimilating these kind of cultural elements, I feel like the positive is that I'm a lot more relaxed, and not relaxed, I'm a lot more accepting and stable, I think. Things don't shake me as much. I've got a sense of balance and strength, a kind of, it is what it is type mentality. I also feel a little bit better about ephemeral, transient things. I feel a bit more capable of looking upon certain small moments and enjoying them, the basic beauties of life, so to speak. But the negative, and this ties in with what I've been saying the whole video, is that I may have accidentally internalized a sense of self-sacrifice and feeling like there's nobility in death. Not physical death, but nobility in sacrificing and death in a more day-to-day scale. And that might sound pathetic. In some ways it is, in some ways I don't think it is. Back then nobility in death would have been sacrificing yourself for your loved ones or your lords. In my case, it is basically, it's like carrying grocery bags for your mother so that she doesn't have to, and that she says, oh, what a good boy you are. So my desire for nobility and sacrifice is obviously on a scale far less grand and permanent than it would have been in the past. But it still exists, and it's not healthy. Do I regret reading 101 Japanese books? No, of course not. It's shaped who I am. It has made me a better person. It's made me a more stable, stronger person. But I do have to reflect on some of the unintentional things that I let through the door, so to speak. So in summary, I should understand what pushing myself enough looks like. I don't need to suffer to have value, and I need to not always be obsessed with control. A friend did tell me a while ago that reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. I don't think I've fully internalized or accepted that yet. I picture scenes of me asking my family or friends for help, and I feel practically sick doing it. Like it feels so incongruent with everything about me. I'm picturing the scene, and it feels like something that just can't exist, or I will not let it exist. I feel like I'm tearing up now just even thinking about it. I'm not going to do that. I'm definitely not capable of doing that right now. I'll offer you a compromising middle ground, which is that I will process these feelings alone, and maybe someday I'll be capable of doing that with other people. But for now, if the three options are bottle it up, process it alone with strangers online, or speak about it with people in person, I'm going to go with the second one, because I can't afford a therapist. That would be option 4. That's kind of like pay to win. That it's not like that. Don't treat therapy like pay to win. That was a bad analogy. Anyway, I appreciate everybody who has watched so far and commented. I'm sorry I haven't replied or interacted with you in any way. I'm just a little preoccupied at the moment. But yeah, thank you, and I'll see you next video.